is, I don't know if it was in Korea, but typical shopping mall. Like when I was growing up, and they still have them, typical shopping mall inside, and kind of, how can I explain? At the entrances, there'll be like some really big store. Like here is, Sears was one of them, Macy's was another one, I'm forgetting the names of the other one. JCPenney was one of them. And so they do have regular just side entrance coming into the mall, but most people, when you enter the shopping mall, you start at one of those stores. So when you walk into the shopping mall, you're going to walk through Sears and you will see everything. So of course that's good for them. Maybe you stop and something catches your eye and you want to buy something. But I always remember, almost every time when you go into the shopping mall, you enter through Sears and you walk through there, and then there'll be on the other side the indoor entrance, which spits you out into the kind of huge corridor where you can walk and see all the small stores like that. It's kind of just typical American shopping complex, shopping mall style. So when you hear the word legacy stores, that's what I first think of. Like those what I said, those big ones. JCPenney, Sears, what's the other one I said? Macy's, like that. And in the 80s or the 90s, I think they did really well. And that when you wanted to buy something, you a lot of times went to the mall, you know. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, if you had to do Christmas shopping, that's where you went. So that was kind of their heyday, meaning they were doing really well, the business was. But then, of course, 2000 came along, and then the big thing is just online shopping. And they talk about digital disruption, which is number 2. That is a prime example of digital disruption. So that happened, and then the industry kind of started to slip. And then these days, I just read something the other day. It was Sears, closing like 50 stores nationwide or something like that. So these days, that industry kind of, another term you might see something called brick and mortar in one of our discussion questions. Brick and mortar meaning an actual, standalone store that you walk in there and you buy stuff. So that's what I think of legacy stores, specifically those big kind of, I don't know, like I said, JCPenney, Macy's, like that. That's what I think of. And maybe the term can be used a little more loosely to just any store that, like if you see the definition here, it says a store that uses outdated or old systems. They're primarily relying on business walking in there instead of doing more digital stuff. You could use it a little more loosely if you wanted to. Number 2, digital disruption. So this is pretty obvious if you just pay attention to the 2 words, digital and disrupt. It is any business when something is going to mess with your business because of some digital things. So like I said, the shopping malls, during the advent of online shopping, that would be a perfect example. Another perfect example would be Uber with the taxi companies. There's some app, some website, but it doesn't have to be app or website. I'm sure there is. I'm trying to think. Long time ago, when the cash register machine was invented, I'm sure that somehow caused digital disruption for some stores. It seems to me like that would help almost every store, but I'm sure somehow that caused some disrupted the market in some way when there's some new kind of digital thing. Of course, it's going to definitely mostly talk about the internet age and stuff revolving around that. Number 3, go, must see. Must see, must go. Like I said, this is something very common that you can use in so many different ways. Again, it's the word must, if you use it sometimes, is quite a strong word. You must do this. I'm giving you no choice, right? But when we use it like this, it's a must see, it's a must go. It's more like something that you really want to do, or it would be really fun to do, or it would be a really good idea to it. The example sentence, if you see that, it says Jeju Island is a must-go tourist spot when you visit Korea. Can you visit Korea and stay in Seoul and have a great time? Yeah, it's not. You don't have to go to Jeju. They're just saying a lot of people like to do that. It's a must-see. It's a must-go. And then Millennial Playground. This one actually, I'm not sure if I've ever seen that word used like they use it in this sentence. That's kind of new to me. Instead of paying attention to Millennial Playground, just more focus on the word millennial. So I think roughly people who were born in the 80s, technically, people who were born in the early 80s is the start of the millennials until people who were born in early 2000s. You know, the word millennial meaning the new millennium, actually not just century, right? Not just century. When the year 2000 was a new millennium. So it means anyone who reached adulthood in the new century. So people who were born like 1982, they're turning 18 right around 2000, right? So they're starting adulthood. Also, someone who, like my brother, born 1990, so he turned 18 like 2008. So he's a millennial. Also, people who were born year 2000 probably is kind of like the cutoff, you know? Year 2000, they're reaching millennial. Probably you cut it off early 2000s. After that, they're still just kids, I guess. So they don't really have a... sometimes I've heard something called Generation Z. They used to have Generation X, and then Generation Y, and then Generation Z. These days it's much more common just to see millennial used. Again, there's no set definition for these things. I think people who are a little bit older than me were Generation X. I am Generation Y, and people who are younger than me, maybe like high schoolers these days, might be Generation Z. Don't have to pay attention to that much, but the word millennial is actually pretty big gap. You know, kind of anyone who's in their late 30s to early 20s. Anyone who's in their 20s and 30s right now, basically, could probably be called a millennial. And Millennial Playground, they just mean, you know, a place where you want to go, and they don't mean actual playground, of course. Some type of Millennial Playground could be where some cool stuff is going on, and they want to go there, they want to experience that. They're using the word playground kind of a little bit goofy. I've never seen it actually used like that. Number 5, fulfillment center. So this is where some order is going to be coming in. It's kind of like a supply chain word. When the order comes in, you have all these stores, especially if you have a lot of small stores around there. They might not even have the product in hand. This is especially with retail. This is really specific to retail. They might not have the product on hand, so they're going to have to order it from the fulfillment center. The word fulfill means to fulfill your order, right? To fulfill that, to fulfill your promise, to deliver upon the promise or an order, to fulfill the order. So the example sentence says Alibaba has fulfillment centers in many countries around the world. Alibaba, obviously a Chinese company, but when when you order that product, it's not probably coming all the way from China immediately. They're shipping it to their North American fulfillment center, or probably even smaller than that, probably East Coast fulfillment center, or different companies are going to have different scales. Alibaba's a global company, so they might have a larger scale. Some sporting goods store might have their Mid-East Atlantic, Northeast Atlantic, something like that, fulfillment center, where they can easily distribute the goods It's like a supply chain type thing, like I said. And then number 6, giveaway. Again, this is basically quite common to see something that's given away for free. It could be money, or it could just be a product. It could be money or a product, either one. Giveaway. Definitely, you're not paying anything. That's the important thing. They're just giving it away. Probably for promotion, of course. So, any questions about those words?